Welcome to the ParentNet podcast by Focus on the Family Singapore. In each episode, we will be speaking with everyday parents and practitioners as they share with us gems from their parenthood journey. Keep tuning in to learn with us as we figure it out together.
Hello and welcome to the ParentNet podcast. My name is June and I'm your host for this episode. Parenting a child with special needs is a profound and often challenging path, filled with both trials and triumphs. In this episode, we are privileged to have Kelvin Seah with us. He's a stay-home father of two boys aged 13 and 15, one of whom has autism. And he's here to share more with us what he's learned on this journey of parenting a child with special needs. Welcome to the ParentNet podcast, Kelvin.
Hi June, thanks for having me here today.
Would you like to introduce yourself so we can get to know you a little bit better?
My name is Kelvin and I have been a stay-home father for about 6 years now. When that happened, it was sometime at the end of 2017 when my youngest of two boys, my youngest was then about 6 years old, going on 7, and he was diagnosed with moderate autism. And at that time, we had no idea what this was about. But in the few years leading up to that diagnosis, we already had some suspicion that he wasn't quite developing in a way that we expected him to, looking at his older brother. So when that diagnosis came, it gave us a name, it gave us an understanding, but it also threw us into a turmoil because we didn't know what it was and we had to take time to investigate it. So I remembered that we decided to request to the Ministry of Education for a deferment because the year after, which is 2018, he was supposed to go to mainstream primary 1. We said, no, we needed time to figure this out. So we, with the diagnosis, was able to get a deferment. And along with that decision was the fact that one of us, either myself or my wife, might have to step away from full-time work. We were both full-time employed at that time. My wife's a social worker. I was a full-time polytechnic lecturer. So I decided to raise my hand and say, okay, I'll take that time. I've been teaching non-stop for 12 years up until that point. So I thought, okay, it's time to take a break. So in 2018, I took a break. At the same time, my son spent an extra year in kindergarten while we went to do our research, talk to people about it and find out what it is, what was the best for him moving forward. And we decided that we would try to apply for a special needs school. At that time, there were about 19 special educational needs schools in Singapore. It has since grown to more than 20. And we tried to find out which was the best for him, and we decided to give Pathlight School a try. Now, Pathlight was specifically created to cater to those on the autism spectrum who are either mild all the way to moderate. And Pathlight provided opportunities for the students to pursue the curriculum towards the primary 6 PSLE. So that was when we went through the hoops. We had to do interviews, we had to go for tests and so on and so forth. There's a very long queue for parents who wanted to enroll their child into Pathlight. So, but in the end, we were successful. And so in January 2019, he started primary 1 in Pathlight as an 8-year-old. Yeah. So that's my history. That's how it began. And throughout the time, taking care of him, learning about this special needs, pretty much occupied a lot of my time. And I was glad I left full-time work. I don't think I would have done a good job. Had I still been trying to hold down a full-time job and navigate this, it would have been a nightmare for myself and for my child and for my family.
Thanks for bringing us through that history right from the day one when you already were picking up some of the signs that things were different for your child. Could you bring us through what was some of the ups and downs during this journey?
I think just ordinary parenting of neurotypical children already is a roller coaster ride. So we threw in an extra dimension here, which is special needs, right? There are more each year being diagnosed with various disabilities. And I recognize that my journey is mine and it's unique to me, but other parents have journeys that are far more different and oftentimes more challenging. So I am very respectful of the fact that there are those who have gone before me and still to come. And everyone's journey is different. And mine was certainly one that had a lot of ups and downs and challenges. I mean, the up was the fact that being able to step away from full-time work gave me time to unpack and understand this a lot better, to research and talk to people and get connected with other communities. And there were at that time more awareness awareness of special needs in general in society, and that helped because there were a lot of splinter groups, different communities, because every special need is unique to that. So it's not really easy to talk across different special needs because the needs are different. So we learned a lot about that. We connected a lot of people. It was very helpful. You needed a community. And I would urge any of the listeners who might be in a situation like this, please connect with people, communities that understand. Because the truth of it is one of the downs and the ups and downs, right? Is that a lot of your immediate family or relatives or friends may not understand.
Yep.
And though they want to be helpful, the reality is that they're really not equipped or skilled to do so. So what may end up happening is that there's actually more stress and pressure on parents and caregivers of special needs children. Because as well-meaning as friends, family and relatives can be, oftentimes the advice tends towards, he'll just snap out of it. You just have to give him more treatment, send for more intervention and stuff. And after all these heavy demands, not just on time and logistics, but also the emotional and the mental state of the caregivers. So I'm glad that in Singapore now in the recent years, there's been a lot more spotlight shone onto caregivers in the community, because we do go through a lot of that whole cycle of, the 6 stages of grief.
Yes.
So you go through all the various stages of grief. And it's iterative, which means that sometimes I go back to a previous stage and I'm just wrestling with it again. And each time a milestone is missed or something doesn't work out, the caregivers go through that challenge of, what did I do wrong? What did I not get right? And it's painful that way. I mean, I remember that when I had to send my child for occupational therapy or speech therapy, there's always this tussle and wrestling within me. Is this going to work? Because a therapy session may be 1 hour at most a week, because that's the attention span, right, of kids. And then the rest of the week, what happens, And then when you're spending time bringing your kids for these therapy sessions, interventions and whatnot, are you also spending time connecting and relating to the child? And those are all very big questions and I have no easy answers. But I ask myself sometimes, as a parent, maybe I need to give up on something if it takes away time for relationship building. And might that mean that he's not getting something he needs help with? So sometimes you can make these kind of very tough decisions. And it's painful because you always go through a lot of recriminations in your mind. You ask yourself, could I have done this? Could I have gone back and worked on that, and maybe you have made a difference now. One of the most recent things we found out was that my son has been accepted to go on an overseas field trip come October, November this year, which sounds great, because he's going to go overseas, but this time he's going without his family. It's just his teacher and his fellow classmates, and my wife and I were just trying very hard not to freak out. And then the questions come, because we didn't even know actually that there was this opportunity until it landed on our laps. And then we asked ourselves, if we had known, say, a year before or 2 years before, could we have taken more steps to prep him? Because now it's just, I got to hyper charge the crash course, literally the next 3 months or so to October, November. And then all the things we asked, will he be ready? He's frightened. What's going to do about it? All those kind of things. And then we asked ourselves, what were we doing before? Could we maybe have focused less on academics? Maybe focus more on daily living skills, survival skills, right? Things that most of us, of course, take for granted. Most of us who are neurotypical, we don't recognize that those in the community take a lot longer to master these skills that we master within a day or less. So these are some of the highs and lows and realities of caring for special needs. Yeah.
I'm hearing that a lot of emotions came up for you. You mentioned the grief, the pain, and then the pressures from well-meaning family members and friends, as well as your internal tussle, struggle, right? As to, should I go for this therapy, this new session, this additional session with another therapist, or should I just spend time with my child, getting to know what he likes or dislikes at this point in time, getting to know him as a person, getting to enjoy him as your child, right? So I'm hearing that, it is indeed not a straight line and it's not a simple journey. And at oftentimes you probably have to stop and reflect, are we on track? Is this important? What should we be doing? And then now you mentioned that there is this new milestone that's coming up towards the end of this year, and it's a sudden, rush to prepare the things that you think your son needs, right?
Stay tuned for the continuing episode.
Sounds like we need to do a follow-up.
Please ask me back. I'll tell you what happened at the end of the year. I think that this journey, right, is not unique to me. Of course, the details are unique, But this whole element of getting your special needs children ready for society is a very huge thing. And a lot of times there are so many things coming at the parent and caregiver from different directions. You are asked to fit in with fast-paced society, our pressure cooker society. But the reality is that within the special needs community, the whole concept of time is different. You can't expect efficiency to happen just like that. And our economy is efficient, we get things done, we're always ranking very high in all these metrics across different kinds of identities, who we are, where we stand in the global stage. But of course, applaud the fact that we could get to all those in such a short time. But what we now need to recognize is that increasingly that kind of pace is going to leave many behind, especially those in a disability and special needs community, because we are moving to a beat of a different drum. How can we as a society support, even as we try to continue to stay relevant, but at the same time helping those who are in need, the disenfranchised, the disability community, to feel like they belong? Because I think that's one of the challenges we face as caregivers. I'm not saying this to be judgmental, but I feel that as a society, we have made some progress certainly in the last decade or so, but there's still so much room to improve because there's so many nuances, dynamics. Society is also constantly in flux and constantly advancing. So at some point in time, we ask ourselves, how are we going to keep up as a specialist community if the goalpost keeps shifting further and further from us as we try to keep up with technology, innovation, development? Sometimes I ask myself, as societies, can we just slow down? Can we just do less and actually be prepared to be less efficient, because it gives breathing room.
Yeah.
It gives us in the community time to catch up with it, because our children need that. I think that one universal question that all parents of special needs like myself will always ask at the bottom line is this question: what will happen to my child when I'm gone? When I'm 6 feet under? Who's going to take care of it? I mean, the sad reality is that a lot of special needs families, their household sizes are pretty small. When you have a child with special needs, if it's the first child, often parents will ask, do I want to have another one? What if it happens again? And that's a very real, painful question.
Yeah.
And when you recognize that question, and many may default to, so, okay, I'll just focus on one child, right? Can you imagine how poignant that question's answer is going to be? Because when I'm gone, that child has no sibling. You know, and he may or may not have extended family. What then? That means a larger community needs to step in. But the question is, where is that larger community? How is the larger society going to support, or are we going to continue to be sidelined or ostracized? And that's really very painful, because the special needs community have things to offer.
Yeah.
We just need to be patient to pull it out of them and support and recognize and celebrate small wins. I think one of the things that we are always talking amongst ourselves as parents and caregivers in the special needs communities, we need to celebrate even the smallest of wins. It could be something as simple as conquering a obstacle course in the playground, you know, and which seems like a no-brainer for young kids, preschoolers, but sometimes for kids like even my son who is now 13, right? Sometimes those playground obstacles can be such a challenge, and it's very demoralizing as he does it, and you watch kids half his age scale it like it's just another day, and he is there just trying to get halfway, and you ask yourself, what do we do with that? What can we as a society do to support? So those are all the things we wrestle with.
Well, thanks for bringing us into the mind and the world of understanding special needs and, you know, the worries that a parent may have. Even, I think, parents of neurotypical kids are already kind of huffing and puffing, right, to get their kids into the right tuition center or to, you know, work on their weaker academic subjects just to prepare for this big thing called the PSLE. And you have brought us through, like, how much more for a parent with a child with special needs. What you talked earlier about the concept of time, right? How it has been totally redefined for you.
Yes.
And I think sometimes I hear people saying that there seems to be a bit of a time loss. Like they are lamenting that because my child has this need or this ability, like I've lost time. He's meant to be doing this by this age, but we are not there. And I think there's a sense of so much pressure as well as so much grief related to that.
I think you brought up a very difficult but an important point to raise. Yes, I think most of us would typically look at this and say that, oh my gosh, this is like a burden. This is like the time that I could have used, I now have to rethink it entirely. I have to slow it down. And I feel as though I'm sacrificing things that I could be doing. Maybe going on more holidays, going on more excursions, doing a lot more other things that for most typical families with neurotypical children, you can do that and strive for higher achievements, milestones. And I can't do that now with my special needs child. It feels like it's a sacrifice. And why me? Why us? And I've struggled with that question. I think a lot of parents like me struggle with that question. But I guess over time, I've come to ask myself, maybe I'm looking at it from the wrong side of the lens. Maybe actually it is a sacrifice on never knowing this experience that I now have. And I think it took me a long time to come to this perspective. It's kind of like when we talk about how there was an announcement early this year that the total fertility rate in Singapore has plummeted. And we asked ourselves what's going on. And a lot of people, when they've surveyed, especially the younger generation, say, oh, we don't have kids, we don't want to sacrifice our leisure time or so on and so forth. Then I flip the question around and say, what if what you're doing, you thought is fulfilling yourself, is actually the sacrifice you're making? And you're actually not recognizing all the rewards and fruits. Because I asked myself in my own journey as a special needs parent that I've learned a lot of things that I don't think I would have learned had I not had my child. I've learned that patience is not a given. I've learned that patience is something that you continue to hone, and just when you think you're patient enough, you're not. And something else happens and you just lose your marbles and you just go right back. So I've learned that. I've learned to be more attentive, pay more attention to the smaller things. And I've learned that actually life is lived in the small moments. Those little moments when your son, for whatever reason, suddenly reaches out and holds your hand. And it could be because he's afraid of something, or he just wants to connect. And you are there. If I was holding out a full-time job, not there, I would have missed that moment completely. And is that really isn't that a sacrifice? So it's really a case of perspective. And I have come a long way to this point where I can see that, yes, actually, many in the onset, when they first began this journey, would think, oh my God, I'm going to give up so many things, luxuries, things that I wanted to do, hopes and dreams of my child to be the next astronaut or what have you. Lofty goals that, of course, every parent has for their children. But maybe what I'm gaining in return is a more anchored, a deeper perspective of what actually humanity is about. And we're all about, this is the world we live in. Everyone needs a helping hand. Let's reach out and help. Let's learn to be available. Let's not quibble over the little marks, achievements and stuff. And all these are really transient. And I think my son taught me all those things, even though he may not meant to. And I'm still learning those things. And sometimes I'm unlearning and relearning. This is where life is lived in these moments. And with my child, I've pivoted and picked up new things, new habits and new hobbies and new skills that I never would have. I started blogging 5 years ago. And as I do that, unpack a lot of things in this journey that helps keep my sanity on those days where I'm about to lose it. You know what I mean? And we have those days. A lot of times. Sometimes rinse and repeat the same day. It's like, I just had that day, right? I'm having it again. That's the experience I have. But, these are the things that have helped. And I look back now, and if you ask me, I probably wouldn't have it any other way. Could certain things be adjusted? Yes, of course. You could wish for it. But on the whole, I would never exchange this 6 years of experience upon discovering his diagnosis for anything. And I've drawn closer to my children. I've learned to really understand the beauty and the power and the level of importance parenting has. And we should never say that, don't worry, if I'm busy, I can come on the weekends, I'll spend quality time. But you know what? Quality and quantity come together. You can't separate the two. So you can't tell me there's quality time if you're going to spend like just a weekend with the kids by in between texting your colleagues or your work things. And this is the workhorse culture. Actually, I think has done a lot of damage for us in terms of our ability to be sensitive, to be attentive, to be kind and gracious as society. We keep going back to this again. We're not gracious enough. We've got plenty of examples against it. We do have good ones too, but we're just not getting a lot of this out there because the pace of life, the struggles we have. There's too much. Too many things going on that distracts and fragments our attention away from what really matters, which is our family. So that's what I've learned.
And sometimes it's so important to be able to just step back and take a pause, right?
Yes.
Take stock of where you are in life.
Correct.
And to, like you said, recalibrate if things need to be changed, your attention really needs to be put on your child or your family at a particular time. Would you see yourself as a different person from where you were 6 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. I think in my situation, though the seed for it was planted many years even before that, because I came into parenting actually late in my life. I'm not sure if I speak for others like me, but I think when you are in that situation, you treasure your children a whole lot more because you knew you came this close to never being a parent. And so the seeds were really sown for me so that when my son's diagnosis came about, I was probably already primed for this season of my life where I'm taking on the lion's share of caregiving in the family, being attentive to their schedules, everything. And I feel that that has changed me to reprioritize things that I thought were important, things that fueled my identity, that made me feel that I am part of society in general. But now I come to learn that actually those markers don't matter. I've learned to put aside all these boxes that you have to check. So, oh, you're a graduate, you've hit your first earnings, you have made it up to this corporate ladder rung. And actually, all those things are just a wisp of smoke. It comes and it goes. Oh yeah, David, would you be counting your dollars? Would you be asking us, am I still the CEO or whatever it is? And nothing against those who are. I'm not saying that. But if your entire life and your value and your identity is anchored on those, it's quicksand. You're not going to find those staying with you into those final twilight years of your life because they are always in flux. But the things that are going to matter is who's going to be around your bedside when you're in your last breath, and who do you want to have around you? And those are the people that matter. Have you invested time in life into them? And these are the things that actually are imperceptible. If you're not careful, the days just go. I always tell people in parenting, right, the days are long, but the years are short. Because it's the reality, right? Every day it's like, oh my gosh, this meltdown my child is having is going to end. I've been here like an hour. And then the day feels so long, but then before you know it, my eldest is 15. And I was just looking at him at the sofa yesterday. I was like, I can't remember what you look when you're 5 months old. And now you're 15? What is this? What's going on? You know what I mean? And so these are the realities.
I've been in that position as well.
So you know what I'm talking about. And the years become very short. And before you're not careful, they just disappear. And you can't get it back. There's no time traveling machine. And so you ask yourself right now, as a parent, what are you doing with your time? Because your schedules don't lie. Your calendars don't lie. What are you packing your calendar time with? That's a reflection of where your priorities are. And if your priority in that space, in that, say, the last 7 days, doesn't show family in the balance, maybe it's time to recalibrate. Maybe ask yourself, does all of those things you struggle matter? I mean, it's true. I've given up a lot of things. I've given up paychecks. I've given up aspirations to corporate climbing. It's okay. These are not the things that I prioritize. These don't reflect my identity. My true calling identity is not in any of these things. They are in deeper things. Things I want to see into my last days, into 6 feet under and beyond, whatever that is. These are the things that I need to spend time now, because if I don't, it's going to come back at me. We can all make decisions, but every decision that we make is tied to a consequence that we have no control over. So those are the things that I've learned, and I've changed so much in these several years. So to that question, yes, I am very different from what I used to be. I was naive, I was immature, I was still thinking a lot of things that most people would think, but no, that's not the me anymore. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well said.
Thank you.
I feel like we have gotten you to come here to share about your parenting journey and your very unique one, journey with your special needs son. But you've given us so much more than just that. You've talked about priorities, you've talked about really what a person really values and having that end in mind. So thank you so much for sharing all those gems with us. I feel like we've gotten a lot of wisdom as well as insight as to how to not just journey with your son with special needs, but also to have a broader community perspective, also for others to be more mindful of the needs and the struggles that a family with a child with special needs might have. And I think that's something that we should really keep in mind and start to think about how we might be able to make a difference. It is with a lot of sadness that I have to let you go as we wrap up this episode. And I was thinking, can you share specifically what's been different for you because you're a father coming with this perspective on special needs? What is different for fathers when it comes to raising a child with special needs?
I think that in general, most fathers, when they find out that their children are diagnosed with a special need or other go through the grief cycle pretty hard in terms of you have to now wrestle with something that you have no knowledge of, no control over. And I think generally everywhere, men don't really want to be in a situation where you have no control, you have no immediate solution to a problem, because men are generally about problem solving, right? And so this kind of situation presents a very unique one for a lot of fathers, and a lot of fathers will probably go through a lot of cycles of grief, and sometimes it's denial, sometimes it's rejection. I mean, there are many sad stories globally, not just Singapore, but globally, that a lot of families and marriages actually fall apart because fathers are unable to deal with the realities. And especially in cases where the specialists are extremely severe. I feel for that very much. I know it's a very difficult journey, and it's very hard to prescribe one-size-fits-all solution. There isn't such a thing. One of the things I would say to fathers is love your child. Your child isn't there because you're being punished or you're being put to the test. Your child is there to grow you in terms of your parenting, in terms of understanding and love for someone else other than yourself. Your child with the special needs and disabilities there to help you to reprioritize, to recalibrate, to understand what truly matters in life. And it's a lesson that is very precious, a very difficult lesson. It could be the most challenging thing you will ever have to do. This is where literally the rubber meets the road. You have to give time to engage with it, but don't lose heart. But also don't go at it alone, because many men try to soldier on their own strength. And if you do that, it's going to be very, very hard. So I would tell fathers listening in, get connected with the community, try to be open and share and be open to learning. Spend time with your child. Actually, oftentimes our children are our best teachers. They teach us everything, you know. And so get time with your child. Spend quantity and quality time with your child to understand the little nuances, little likes and dislikes of the child. Celebrate every little small win like it is winning the Olympic Games. You need to dramatize and expand that little win because it matters to that child's self-esteem, that child's sense of my parents love me, and celebrate my little achievement, even if it's a small thing that a child half his age or her age could have done it already. Don't let that go. Celebrate it. Because I've learned the hard way, and when I forget to do that right, it actually sets back your child's development. It's really about living skills, survival skills, help a child to grow those competence. Those ought to take priority over academic pursuits and stuff. Those are the things that if you just hunker down and just do those things over time, it will get easier. And when you see your child rise up to those occasions, those are the moments that you hold close to your heart.
Thank you for that. I find that so inspiring.
Thanks.
And all the best as you and your son navigate this new milestone coming up in October.
Okay.
We'd love to have you back to hear about your experience.
Yes, I'd love to share it too. If I survive it, if we survive it, yes, I would love to do that.
Sure you will.
Thank you so much, June. Thank you for this. Yeah.
Thank you, Kelvin, once again. For listeners out there, we hope you have benefited from this podcast, and do remember to share this with a friend who may also learn something from Kelvin's sharing. And if you'd like to get connected with Kelvin, you can visit his blog at kelvinseah.com. That's KelvinSeah.com. For more parenting resources, do visit our website at family.org.sg, and do keep tuning in to the ParentNet podcast to learn and grow in your parenting journey.